Okay, so the broadcast, we have to reiterate, the broadcast is sponsored Lilu Nishmas Shmuel B'Rab Moshe. His yard site is today, and the Neshama zal haben Aliyah and haben Nachas.
Amen.
Hey,
Akiva, I still like you see, there's not so many participants yet. I sent you an email. You probably can't put it on our network. Maybe you might get pushback from some people, but I sent it to some of my friends last night that if on 1:30 p.m. the Jonathan Sachs and this Ephraim Goldberg or Goldstein, they're having a conversation mediated by the OU.
Can we put it on? I'll run it by the
editorial. I thought only my conversations have to be censored.
No, I see who's here. That's right. I know sometimes sometimes he gets like pushback. If like say Lamud, if it's someone that's a little off the beaten track, he gets pushback. I don't want to give him aggravation, especially for a job that he's not getting paid for.
I don't know. I'm getting scar hopefully in Noilam Haba.
I have to think that Jonathan Sachs is and this Ephraim Goldberg is people that worth listening to if you have time. So it's on OU.org at 1:30 p.m.
What's the topic? I'm going to look at it again. I didn't have.
He's talking about corona. He's talking about the coronavirus, and I don't know.
Okay.
Something to do with corona, but it just looked interesting. I sent it to you on Friday afternoon.
I scanned it, and anything with Jonathan Sachs we usually don't put in because he's officially more modern. But
yeah, exactly.
Maybe these are heady times, so maybe we can find it.
How much more?
Maybe this is like Satmar going to Dublin in some Chabad house because he couldn't find the minion somewhere else. When he was on vacation. I mean, it's okay to talk to the Lubavitcher then. So, okay to listen to Jonathan Sachs in a pandemic. Besides, it's in the privacy of your own home.
I hear. I already know. I know. Yeah, it'd be very interesting for those who listen to Jonathan Sachs. It's unbelievable. The guy has such insight and breaks things down he makes really lofty ideas seem simple.
It's all in the accent.
That's right. Anything an Englishman says sounds good. I'll tell you, anything an Englishman says sounds good.
Right.
And the guy's brilliant. The guy is
brilliant.
He is.
He's very smart.
Good morning, Chaim C. Good morning, Nechi. Good morning, Phil. Okay.
Neimer.
Shall we start? Ha'ilfus.
Yeah.
We've been working in the kitchen for the last couple of days over here. Ha'ilfus, V'aktera, she'avir neroyevskum. You have either a frying pan, the article touches ilfus is a frying pan, and keder is a pot. That was cooking on the fire. It's a kli rishon. She'avir neroyevskum. You took it off the fire, but it's still a kli rishon. The halacha is lo yitin l'seichem tavel. You're not allowed to put spices into it, such as cinnamon. I think even the article talks about which spices. But you're not allowed to put spices into it because the spices will cook in a kli rishon, even though it's not on the fire. Avol, noisinhu, you are allowed to put the spices, l'seich kaira, into a plate. So once you've already put the, let's say the soup, you took it out of this pot and you've already served it in a bowl, there you're allowed to add spices, because then the spices will no longer cook. Or if the food was taken out of the pot and it's on a platter, the main point is now that it's in a klisheni, you're allowed to add spices to it. You can put spices into anything, except for things that either have vinegar in it or tzir or fish juice. Now, we don't know what Rabbi Yehuda is talking about, and the Gemara is going to analyze that. Iboilu, clear the Gemara, Shaila. Rabbi Yehuda, Reishakol, Ulakula, was Rabbi Yehuda responding to what the Tanakhama said. The Tanakhama said, you're not allowed to add spices to a Kli Rishon. On that, Rabbi Yehuda says, of course you are. The only time you could not add something to a Kli Rishon is only if it has chometz or tzir. But spices you may add to a Kli Rishon. Is that what Rabbi Yehuda meant to say? Or maybe he's referring to the Seifa, where the Mishnah says you are allowed to put spices into a klisheni. And that the Yehuda says, yes, but there's an exception only if it doesn't have chometz or tzir. Toshma. So now the Gemara is going to clarify what Yehuda actually said. The Tanya looking at Bryce. So Yehuda Aimer l'choil ilfasin hu noisein You're allowed to put spices into anything, whether it's a klirishin or a klisheni. Chutz midavar sheyesh by chaymitz etzir. So Rabbi Yehuda is actually commenting both on the Reisha and on the Sefer. He's saying that you're allowed to put spices into anything, whether it's a klirishin or klisheni, but something that is chaymitz and tzir, you may not put hot water into it, or you may not put it into hot water. It doesn't matter if it's a klirishin or klisheni. So those are spices. What's the halacha with salt? Are you allowed to put salt into your chicken soup? Are you allowed to put it into your chicken soup when it's in the pot? Are you allowed to put it into the chicken soup when it's in your plate? So the Gemara looks into that. Savar Rabbi Yosef l'meimar melach harei k'tabel. Rabbi Yosef thought to say that salt is like any other spice. The bechli rishoin b'sheila, in a chli rishoin it cooks, and therefore you're not allowed to put salt directly into the soup pot that was actually on the fire. Even if you took the soup pot off the fire, but the soup pot was once upon a time on the fire, you're not allowed to put salt into it. But once it's in your bowl, you're allowed to add salt to it. We learned, Rabchia learned that melach einon ketavel, it's not like spice. The b'chlisheni nami bashla. So Rabchia learns even in a klisheni, salt will get cooked. According to Rabchia, you're not even allowed to put salt into your soup plate that's in front of you on the table. With Pligadi Rab Nachman, which argues Rab Nachman, Rab Nachman, Shricha Milcha Bishula Kibisha the Torah. Rab Nachman is all the way on the opposite end of the spectrum. He holds that even into the soup pot on the fire, even in the soup pot that's not on the fire, you're allowed to put salt. Why? Because he learns that salt requires so much heat to cook it that it will not cook in the kli rishon. Just like buzzer of an ox, it requires so much heat to cook it. If you merely put it into a kli rishon that's not on the fire, it won't cook it. Ox meat, in order to cook it, you actually have to put it into a pot that's actually on the fire right now. But salt is the same way, which means you're allowed to take your chicken soup pot off the fire, and you can put salt right into it. The Ikadamri, Sover Rabbi Yosef Lameimar, there's a third version of what Rabbi Yosef said, was that melech harei k'tavlin. It's exactly like tavlin, the bechli rishon bashla, bechli sheni loy bashla. It cooks on the kli rishon, but not on the kli sheni. So we have three sheets about salt. Either you're even allowed to put it into the chicken soup pot, or you're not even allowed to put it into your bowl, or you could put it into your bowl, but not into the pot. Amalei Abai, Tanu Rabchia, melech einu k'tavlin. Salt is not like spices. The bechli rishon nami loy bashla, which is the most chulid dekashita. And Amar Rab Nachman, Shricha Milcha Bishula Kibisha Torah. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think Shimon Eider speaks out that the salt that the Gemara is talking about is raw mine salt, which was never cooked. I think he says that our table salt that we use is pre-cooked anyway. It was heated up, and therefore, for sure, it would be mutter to put into a klisheni, without a doubt. And I think that's the meaning, that we put salt into a klisheni, but we don't put salt into a kli rishon. Okay. Zap the Helig Gemara Vajer. Ein loisten kli tachas haner lekabel b'esh Hashem. So imagine you have a ner. A ner is a little receptacle that has oil in it, that has a wick in it, and it's burning, but it's dripping. So the question is, are you allowed to take a bowl and put it under a dripping ner? That can even happen today. Sometimes my wax candles start to drip down, and you don't want it to go on your tablecloth. Are you allowed to put a bowl under it to catch the drip? So the loch is you're not allowed to do that. But if you put a bowl underneath a dripping ner before Shabbos, then mutter, then of course you're allowed to do that. But any oil that actually drips into that bowl, you're not allowed to use. Because it was designated to be oil that was going to be burnt in the ner, and that now is no longer mutter, it's called muksa, and you wouldn't be able to use that oil at all until after Shabbos. Zok the Helig Gemara. Omer Abchista. Afal Pisha Amru. Even though we said, Ein noisten kli tachas tarnagoyles l'kabel b'tzasa, imagine you have a chicken that's going to lay an egg, and the chicken happens to be standing on an incline. So when the egg comes out, it's going to roll away and get lost. So you want to put an aluminum pan, for instance, underneath this chicken, so the egg will fall into the pan, then it won't roll away. You're not allowed to do that because that's exactly a similar case that's comparable to putting a kli tachas in there. Avol koifa ala kli. You are allowed to, if the chicken was not on the incline, but it was laying an egg in an ashba, which is a place where it was common for chicken to lay eggs. And this proves that the chicken came first, not the egg. So if the chicken lays an egg in the ashba and you don't want that egg to get damaged, the egg itself is muksa, it's noilad. You're allowed to put a cover on it. You're allowed to put a keli over it to protect it. Shaloi tishover, that it shouldn't break. So the question is, why would one be allowed and why not? Now there's going to be two svaras that the Gemara is going to throw around to explain why you're not allowed to do this. Svara number one is you're not allowed to move a non-muksa item for the purposes of a muksa item. So if I have a bowl, that's a non-muksa item. My egg is a muksa item. I'm not allowed to move a bowl to service a muksa item. That's one svara the Gemara is going to throw around. The other svara the Gemara is going to use is you're not allowed to be mevatel kli me'echanai. I have a bowl. A bowl is usable. I use it for food. I can use it for things. You're not allowed to put the bowl in a situation where you will no longer be able to use it on Shabbos. So if I put that bowl underneath the nair and it starts catching oil, now the bowl becomes muksa because it's a bosses, it's holding the oil, which is muksa. So I'm taking a keli that was perfectly usable, it was non-muksa on Shabbos, and I'm putting it into a situation where now it will be usher. So those are the two svaras that the Gemara is going to deal with. So Amar Rabba wanted to know, Reb Chisda, who made that distinction between catching an egg in the bowl or really covering it over, what would the reason be for that? Now, covering over an egg with a bowl is not mavat kli me'echanai because I can just take it away. But if I catch the egg in the bowl, that is mavat kli me'echanai because I can't just get rid of the egg. So Amar Rabba, my Talmud Reb Chisda, he doesn't say what I said. Rather, he says Kasavar he holds Karnagolis Asuya Lahatal Beitasav Ashba. It was very common that a chicken would lay an egg in the ashba where it would be in danger and it would need protection. But the Eina Asuya Lahatal Beitasa B'Makamedrin. It wasn't normal for a chicken to lay an egg on an incline. That wasn't the typical place where it would be put, where it would lay an egg. And therefore, this is going to be also in both places. And I don't see how it could be also with not the klima echanai. So the issue is probably that I'm moving a muksa item to service I'm moving a non-muksa item to service a muksa item. There's an issue d'Rabbanan of muksa, but the Rabbanan made a heter. The Rabbanan waived the isser of muksa to save somebody from a hatzalah mitzuya. If it was a situation that's pretty common, so for common situations that lead to loss of money, they waived the isser of muksa here. It was relatively common for a chicken to lay egg in the ashba. Since that was a common thing that could happen, they waived the hilchos muksa for that item alone to save that egg. But it was very rare for a chicken to lay an egg on an incline. So they're not worried. They're not going to create all these different waivers to be matter muksa. The big ones, the things that were common, that were relevant, so for that they waived the isser to help people not suffer loss of money. So what you mean to say is anytime you had a hatzalah, a problem that came up that wasn't a common problem, you're suggesting that they would not waive the isser of muksa. So right away, before we learn the cases that Abai is going to ask from, let's think about our Mishnah. It means the Mishnah must be saying that it's not common to have to put a bowl under the nair to catch the oil. That's not common enough, and that's why they weren't matir. So Tosfos speaks about it. Tosfos gives a little bit of clarification. So Tosfos says, the aim nois the kli tachas and nair lekabel shemen is called atzol sheini mitzuya. Why is that? It should be pretty common that a nair could drift. So Tosfos will tell you why. Because it's super common. It's very common that a nair should drift. The reason why it's uncommon for someone to have to put on Shabbos a keli under the nair is because most of us even before Shabbos, before we start lighting theirs, we automatically set it up with a keli under there. Most people have a tray. So because of that, there's never a need to put a plate underneath the dripping there on Shabbos, because most people already do it before Shabbos. So that's what makes it into a Mitzuya. The fact that it's so Mitzuya and people automatically mitigate it in advance makes it unusual for someone on Shabbos to have to put a keli underneath in there. So let's see weiter. So the Gemara says, Abai has some kashus. So again, the rule is that the Rabbanan will waive Hilchas Muksa if it's to solve common problems. But to solve unlikely problems, they don't waive the Isser of Muksa. If you have a barrel of tevel, let's say for instance it's a barrel of wine, and Trumas and Maestris were not yet taken from it. So you're not allowed to you're not allowed to drink wine from this barrel. So that barrel is Muksa. Because the law is there's a Rabbanan prohibition of being mafresh Trumas and Maestris on the barrel of on tevel. So you have this barrel, it's tevel, and you're not allowed to be mesaka the tevel on Shabbos. So that means you have a barrel of wine that you for sure cannot use Shabbos, and it cracks. So the question is, this whole barrel is muksa because it's something you can't use on Shabbos. So what are you supposed to do if it cracks? Now your wine is going to drain out, and you're going to lose all your wine. That'll lead to a big loss. So the law is, if nishbar lechav shel tavel b'resh gagoy, maybe kli, you could bring a kli. Now I'm going to suggest from Chalemus Yosef that not only using the wine is going to end up leaking into your dining room. It's on a roof. We're soon going to see that the roofs in the olden days didn't work so well. They dripped a lot. Chaim Tzvi, if you ran your roofing business the way the Gemara discusses roofs, Amud Aleph, you wouldn't do too well. In the olden days, it was expected as a default that your roof was going to leak. And the Gemara says an older roof won't leak, but a brand new roof for sure is going to leak. That's what the Gemara is going to say.
Yeah,
just
but
a
that's
moment.
because,
Sorry.
Yosy Zalman, but that's because the houses were made out of stone and not drywall, and so the house didn't fall apart if the roof leaked.
Well, we're soon going to see that it was made out of wood. We're going to learn that the quality control in those days was very substandard.
So Yosy, is there a difference between if you actually want the stuff that's leaking or dripping, or is you're just collecting it so it shouldn't ruin something else?
No, the shot of this price is you're collecting it because you want it. I was just adding it as a joke that it's going to leak into your roof because on Amud Aleph we're going to learn that their roofs were very bad. Okay,
but if that is the case, like for us, we put a tray under the candle because we don't want it to drip on something.
Right. So that might be. I'm not sure if that's called a malacha she'en tzricha l'guf or not. No. I'm not sure. But it seems from our Mishnah clearly that it's treated the same because in our Mishnah's case it was to stop it from dripping on something, and in the case of the tevel it was because I want to salvage the wine. And the Gemara brings both types of cases. Either I'm trying to stop the drip to protect something from getting damaged from the drip, or if I want to retain what's in the drip. And the Gemara doesn't seem to make a distinction between the two of them. Okay. So the Gemara says over here, what do? You have your barrel of wine is leaking. So medically, you take a big basin and you put it underneath the barrel. Now, how common is it that a barrel is going to just split spontaneously? So the Gemara was very common. But new barrels can spontaneously split. If it's an old barrel, it wouldn't be a problem. But new barrels was common. So the Chachamim would have waived the Isser Muksa for new barrels. Because any time there was a new barrel, it was a common occurrence. Let's look at a different case. Yes.
Does this mean that the original barrel that broke could be moved or lifted and put into another barrel? Like I find it a little bit hard to understand how you're going to put a barrel underneath another barrel without truly moving the original barrel. Is that the heter that the Gemara is saying, to actually move and handle the first barrel that broke?
I'm not sure, and I was thinking the same thing. How could you get a basin underneath a barrel if you don't lift the barrel up? So it must mean you're allowed to lift it up. I'm just thinking from a practical perspective, how would it otherwise be possible? I wonder if the article says anything about it.
Why can't you say you're just catching the wine that's falling into the house? So it doesn't go on the floor? the wine that's dripping through the roof and is now coming into your house. So you're using the new clee to catch that wine.
I don't know for a fact what shot, but I'm assuming it's because you're trying to save the wine. That would be the typical thing. So I don't know.
So that wine that's coming through the roof is probably useless already. It's already going through dirt and cement and lime and tar. You're not going to really drink that type of wine, just like you wouldn't drink the water.
I don't know if the roof. I don't know if the roof has anything to do with it. If that's just because that's when maybe people kept it.
Barrels are many times stored on a shelf horizontally, so they're up above the ground. So if you slide something underneath it.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. The barrel could be in a position where it's on top of a shelf, and you're putting it underneath under the crack. So you don't necessarily have to lift the barrel up to get this basin underneath it. I think David's saying very good. You could slide the basin underneath it without it. That's probably shot, because that's really what we're discussing. Is not handling the actual muksa. It's taking a keli that's not muksa and using it to catch the muksa stuff. Okay. Okay, so let's have a look later. So the Gemara, sometimes a spark comes flying off your candle, and you don't want to fall on your tablecloth and burn the tablecloth, so you're allowed to put a keli to catch the spark. Again, that's not common. In fact, it is common for sparks to fly. But Tosfos asks, well, if it's common for sparks to fly, then people would have put already a keli on the table before Shabbos. So Tosfos says it's common for sparks to fly, but it's not as common as dripping. Dripping is very common, and therefore people would already put a keli before Shabbos. Sparks are common, but not so common that you would put a keli underneath them there before Shabbos to catch it. Okay, Yosy. So now we have another kasha. Koifin kaira alaner. The halacha is you're allowed to put a kaira on top of a ner. 1 second. Koivin kaira alaner. You're allowed to put a kaira alaner. Shelo yechos b'kair, so that the flame shouldn't light the house on fire. Now that's surely very unusual for the flame of a ner to light a house on fire. And that's up to the Gemara. No, bevati gechini. We're talking about houses with very low ceilings. So that you're allowed to be koiv kaira on the ner, and I'm sure you have to leave space for oxygen, otherwise you're going to be putting it out. But the only time you're allowed to put something on the ner to protect the walls from getting burnt is only if you have very low ceilings and we're afraid it'll impact it.
So yes, if you're allowed to do that, then what's the whole point of lighting the candles anyway? The whole point of lighting candles is you have light, shalom bias, right? If you're not going to have any light, if you cover the candle, what's the point?
Well, let me ask you two questions. First of all, could it be a glass? It could be something that's glass.
Yes.
A or B is you're putting it above it, but you're not necessarily covering the whole thing. So light could get out from underneath it. So Zok to more about there. See, now we're talking about construction. You have a house, and the beam of your house broke, and it's coming down now. So the halacha is, we looked at this halacha before. You're allowed to put either a bench underneath it or a bedpost underneath it to support the beam. We learned earlier, you're not allowed to push the beam back into place. That's not allowed, because that would be like boina, but you're allowed to at least put it underneath it so it cannot come down further. So that can't be something that's common, that the beams of your house collapse. So it's more sure. It's new construction. It's a new beam. We know new pieces of wood, I guess, till they settle, they could just spontaneously pop. And now we're talking about roofing. You're allowed to put a keli underneath a leaky roof on Shabbos. How could you do that? That can't be common. So tomorrow, we're talking about a new house. It's very common in new houses. Older houses, they've already ironed out all the kinks. But in new houses, there's still the deficiencies that pop up here and there that, what's that new home warranty? The Tarion is supposed to cover. That's what Tarion's for, to deal with all of the issues that occur in a new house. So these are all common things, and that's what you're allowed to do.
That's what everybody knows. If the new roof leaks, it's actually the rooftop unit. It's not the roof.
That's right. Whenever something new leaks, there's always a blame game. There's never something definitive. Everyone's always pointing fingers at everybody else. That's right. Rabbi Yosy Omar, Hainu time with Rabbi Chisda, the svara of Rabbi Chisda is not because you're moving something that's muksa to service. I'm sorry, it's not because you're moving something that's not muksa to service something that's muksa. It's mishum de kamavata kli meichan. It's because of the second svara, and that is you're making a keli that's going to that was originally be able to be used now can't be used anymore, and that's why you're allowed to put the keli over the egg, because when you put the keli over the egg, you're not being allowed to clean meichanai, because you can just as easily take it back off. But if there's an egg inside it, now this keli, which was able to be used for anything on Shabbos, is now immobile. Eisei Abai had a kasha, all the same kashas that we asked before. Chovesh shel tevel shenishbra, maybe kli acher u'maniach tachtel. Now that is being mevatel kli meichanai. How can you do that? Amalei tevel muchnu etzel Shabbos. The reason why, according to Rabbi Yosef's explanation of Rabbi Chisda, which is because of mevatel kli meichanai, why is there no problem of mevatel kli meichanai on apparel? Because in fact, tevel is muchnu etzel Shabbos. Why is that? Shem over v'tiknei musukin. Because the Rabbanan said you shouldn't be mafish trumas and meisters. But if you did it illegally, then you could use it. So that's not called muksa. That's called somewhat mukhin. And there's a long tosfos here that has a problem with that. But Gemara is saying that since if b'di'evet someone illegally was mafish trumas and meisters, it would be misakin that wine, and therefore that wine is not called muksa. So therefore it's not called mevatel kli meichanai. How about the case of nois and kli tachas aner lakabel nitzotzes? Why is that not being mevatel kli meichanai? Very simple. Nitzotzes ein b'hen mamish. Once the spark lands, it's not there anymore. It fizzles out. There's nothing there. So therefore, that's not either a case of mevatel kli meichanai. It's protecting the surface underneath it. But once the spark's gone, you can take it away, because it's not like an egg where it's captured something. Same case that we said when your beam broke. The roughing, it's not that you wedge it in really tight so that you can't pull it out. Rather, you have it underneath, and maybe there's a little bit of space between the roof beam that's collapsed and your post, and you just put it there as a backstop so that if it comes down further, it'll stop. But right now, it's loose. The boy shakale, you can actually take out that piece of wood any time, and therefore you don't have a problem of mevatel kli meichanai. And the same thing with nois and kli tachas adelef b'Shabbos. The reason why you're not being mevatel kli meichanai because the rainwater fell into it is b'delef haroyu. Rashi says it's rainwater that's clean that you could drink. So therefore, the fact that rainwater fell into your keli that you caught it with doesn't make the keli muksa, because the keli is capturing water. You're allowed to put a keli out in the rain to capture water so you could drink. Now we have a new case. There were birds that couldn't get up into the coop. So you made for them a little stool, you took a basket, you turned it upside down. Why these birds can't fly? I don't know. Maybe they're angry birds. And because of that, they're not flying. So they want a little step to get up into their coop. Shiyal over here, they can get up and down. So the question is, how could you do that? Why is that not mevatel kli meichanai? He holds that you're allowed to take that basket away once it's there. But we looked in the brayso that once you put this upside down basket there to act as a stool for the birds, you're not allowed to take it away. So if there's a bird on it, at that moment, you're not allowed to be metaltal. The birds are muksa. But once the bird jumps off and there's no bird on it, you're allowed to take the basket away. So that's not called mevatel kli meichanai. We have a brayso that says specifically that even if there's no birds on it, once you put it down there, it remains muksa and it remains aser. That's in a case where that's if there was a bird on this basket for the entire period of ben hashmashos. And then we say, once something is muksa for all of ben hashmashos, it's not also for the whole day. The case that we're talking about, where you're allowed to do it, is on Shabbos. You're allowed to put a basket there. Because then, even if a bird goes on it, it'll only answer that basket while the bird is on it, but afterwards, you're for sure allowed to take it away. Just like you're not allowed to put a pan underneath an egg to catch its egg. So Rabbi Yitzchak argues on Rabbi Chisda. Rabbi Chisda said that you are allowed to cover an egg with a keli, and we had two pshatim as to why, either because it's asmavata klima echonoi, or because the Rabbanan waived the Isser of Muksa to accommodate a common problem. But Rabbi Yitzchak argues, and he holds no, you're not even allowed to cover over an egg with a keli. B'shvil shalat shavar. Kasavar, he holds, ein kli nitel el l'davar nitel b'Shabbos. He for sure has to hold, like the first reason, that you're not allowed to move a keli that's non-muksa to service something that's muksa. And therefore, you're not allowed to move this pan to cover over an egg. So, we will ask on him all the different prices that we have quoted, like the case of the barrel, the case of the ring, where in fact you are allowed to put a pan there. Vishoni, and the answer that we would answer, how to explain all those prices that are matter, according to Rabbi Yitzchak, is b'tzorachim koimei. The case was, let's say, for instance, the case of the wine. It's muksa. You're not allowed to move the pan underneath the wine because you're going to be moving something that's not muksa, but that is muksa. Well, maybe speaking where the pan was already somewhere and you didn't like where the pan was, so you picked it up and you want to relocate it. Once you picked it up and you want to relocate it, we let you relocate it even to that place because you didn't pick up the pan for the purpose of a non-muksa item. You picked up the pan for a permissible action because the pan was somewhere where you didn't want it to be, and it's non-muksa, so you picked it up. Now you think, hey, where should I put it? As you're thinking of where you should put it, you see your barrel pop, and then you can put the pan underneath the barrel. So all of the cases where it was allowed is a special case where when you picked up the davar mutter, it was in a case where you needed to move it, which is a very difficult shot. I'm surprised David didn't bring it up, because what we're doing now is we're literally minimizing the scope of the halacha. We're saying all these cases where you're allowed to happens to be in a case where you picked it up anyway. Toshma.
David just left.
Oh, he did it. Okay, follow.
Yosy, it sounds like the Gemara is saying that the pen was muksa to beginning with, and you needed the place. That's why you're allowed to move it.
Because of tzarech mekaymai.
You were talking mekaymai.
But that's not what we're saying. We're saying the pan was mutter. You're not allowed to move a pan which is non-muksa. The tzarech davar muksa. It's speaking where you were planning to move the pan anyway. So it's not the heter of tzarech mekaymai that we know for a klishu malach l'isser. It just happens to be a case where it's just giving us an example of someone who picked up the pan anyway for whatever reason. And once he picked it up, then he's allowed to put it in wherever he wants to, even in a place where it's going to service a muksa item. Toshma. Achas beitza shenoldu b'Shabbos, v'achas beitza shenoldu b'Yom Tov. They're both noilad. They're both osir. They're both muksa. Ein metalkin. You're not allowed to move the egg. Loy lechasas basakli. You're not allowed to use the egg as a bottle stopper. The lismach ba karamita, or to support the legs of a bed. Now, if an egg is in the upright position, exactly in its natural form, it's very strong actually, and it would not crush under the weight of an egg. We crack our eggs by tapping them on the side, but when the egg's in their upright position, it's actually very strong. So you would use it to support a bed. So you're not allowed to do that on Shabbos. But on Shabbos and Yom Tov, you're allowed to put a keli over the egg. So the kasha is, we just said in your bitzvah that you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to move something that's non-muksa to salvage, to protect an egg which is muksa. So you'll have to say that this case is speaking where you happen to have picked up the pan already because you wanted to move it for whatever reason. And now that you have the pan in your hand, you're allowed to put it over the egg. Toshma. Person machzolos al gabi avonim b'Shabbos. You're allowed to. Now this is very, very relevant in the times that we're in, which is coronavirus, and in the times that we're in, toilet paper is very hard to come by. So the Gemara here offers an ingenious solution of what to do if you run out of toilet paper. So the Gemara says, "Person machzolos al gabi avonim b'Shabbos." You're allowed to put mats over stones to protect them on Shabbos. Now stones are muksa, so we have the same problem here. I'm moving a dover that's not muksa, the machzolos, and I'm covering over with it to service avonim which are muksa, the Shabbos. So tomorrow, no, we're not talking about regular stones. We're talking about cottonelle stones. Avonim were kazolos, the chazon of esakise. We're talking about stones that have a sharp, smooth end, that you can use. They're called cottonelle stones. Maybe we'll call them Evanel. There was a band once, it was called Evanel. So this is what we'll call it. Instead of saying cottonelle, we'll say Evanel. And it was special type of stones. And they're not muksa because you need to use them on Shabbos. Toshma, person machzolos al gabel levenim b'Shabbos. You're allowed to cover over bricks with mats. Now, bricks are building materials. Building materials are muksa because there's nothing you could do with them on Shabbos, and therefore they're muksa. And yet you see you're allowed to cover them with mats. So tomorrow, no, these aren't bricks that we have on the construction site that we're going to be using to build with. These are bricks, these are bricks that were left over from a construction job. So those bricks, I still have bricks from my house when it was built behind my shed. What do people do with those bricks? They're no longer designated for construction. What they do with them is the chazon lemizgal ayu. People used to use them in their house to lean on. So once a person finishes his construction project, the leftover building materials are no longer muksa because we say they're no longer going to be used for construction. They'll be used for miscellaneous purposes around your house. And therefore they're not muksa. Tashma, now we're getting up to honey. Tashma, person machzelas agabe kivers devorim b'Shabbos. You're allowed to put a mat to cover over a beehive on Shabbos. Why would I do that? The chama mipnei chama, in the heat of the sun, to protect it from sun. Uvikshamim, and in the rain, mipnei geshamim, to protect it from rain. Uvilvad shelo yischav notzut. The only problem is these mats act like a screen, and if you cover over a beehive with it, now no bees will be able to get out. Seda was an isur d'oraisa. So you have to make sure that when you do it, you don't do it with the intention of trapping any bees. So again, you see, removing a mat, l'tzorich a beehive, which is muksa on Shabbos. No, these are beehives that are overflowing with honey. So they're not muksa, because you could go on Shabbos and take honey out of them. Amalei Ravuk from Mimeshin, Ravashi, Ravuk from Mimeshin told Ravashi, Tenich b'yamoisha chamo. So let's look at the lashon of Raisa. B'chama mipnei chama, u'v'kshamim mipnei kshamim. So if I touch these words literally, it means when the sun is shining to protect them from sun, when it's raining to protect them from rain. But Rav Ashi seemed to have translated these words differently. And Rav Ashi learned that chama means in the summertime, and geshama means in the wintertime. Chama means yemoisha chama, and geshama means yemoisha kshamim. So Fret, Rav Okum Meshel Rav Ashi, Tenich b'yemoisha chama. I understand in the summertime, when there's a lot of honey in those hives, and we take the honey for our own use, the ika dvash. But the b'yemoisha kshamim, during the winter, there's no dvash, the lack of dvash. So those beehives would be muksa. How could you possibly cover over those hives? You're using a davar that's not muksa, such as a mat, and you're using it to protect a davar that is muksa, a beehive which doesn't have honey in it that we can't use. Even when we take all the honey out of a beehive, believe it or not, the purpose of that honey is not for us to take. The purpose of the honey is to sustain the bees. It's the way those hives, the honeycombs, are where the bees store their own food. They're not doing it for us. There's a very good cartoon movie about bees suing humans for stealing all their honey. We won't get into that. But I'll call upon them. That's their main purpose of the honey. So even when the beekeepers would take all the honey out of the hives, in the winter, they would leave 2 honeycombs fully intact with all the honey in it so that the bees can survive throughout the winter. And that's why you're allowed to cover over these hives, because there is honey left. In fact, but that honey isn't honey that we can use. That honey in the hive, in those 2 combs that were left inside, those are made to sustain the bees. Surely you can't take that honey. If that's the case, your beehive is still going to be muksa, because there's nothing for you to need from there. This is talking about a guy who before Shabbos, he decided that even though we need those 2 honeycombs for honey, I'm going to take some of that honey anyway. So therefore, the beehive is not muksa. In fact, do you mean to say that if the guy didn't plan to take honey out of the honeycombs over Shabbos, my usher, would you say that it's usher? In fact, if that's the case, the Brisa said, the Brisa said the only place where there could be a potential isser is if when you covered over the hives, you had intended to capture some bees. There's a much closer case where there'd be a problem that you have to be worried about. Live like the listener, and the Brisa should have said, when do we allow you to cover over a hive with a mat? That's if you specifically had in mind to use that honey in the hives that normally people wouldn't use. But if you didn't have specific kavanah to use that honey, also then you would not be able to cover these hives with mats because the hives are muksa. So why would the Brisa reach out to a case of having an intent to capture a bee to say it's usher, even if you don't have an intent to capture a bee? There's a lot of place to be worried about isser, and that is if you didn't have intention to take that honey. The reason why the Brisa wanted to specifically focus on that case where you're having in mind to capture a bee is afilu shechishav alein, even if you intended to use the honey from the beehive, so you wanted that beehive, nevertheless, you still have to be careful not to be over the avera, the malach of tzeda on Shabbos. Practically more money. So we're saying you're allowed to make tzeda, you're just not allowed to have kavanah to make tzeda. So who holds that you're allowed to do that? Reb Shimon, if it's Reb Shimon, less like muksa. If you're holding like Reb Shimon, and that's why you're saying you're allowed to make tzeda, you shouldn't have kavanah in tzeda. Well, according to Reb Shimon, you don't have this whole problem to begin with, because according to Reb Shimon, there's no din muksa. So even if you weren't chishav alein, even if you only had those two honeycombs there that were designed for the bees, and the whole beehive is muksa, you're still allowed to cover it over with the mechzelas because he holds no such thing as a muksa. And Reb Yehuda, Elamai, you're going to have to say that we're going according to Reb Yehuda, who holds a muksa. Well, guess what? Reb Yehuda holds kiloi mischaben mayave. Even if I don't have kavanah to do tzeda, if I do tzeda, but I'm not having kavanah to do tzeda, it's still aser because Reb Yehuda holds so davar shein mischaben aser. Reb Yehuda holds if you do a malacha, even though you didn't intend to do the malacha, it's also aser to do. So if you want to learn this price is going according to Reb Yehuda, why in the world is a mutter you might make tzeda? It is going according to Reb Yehuda, but we'll change the meaning of the Brisa. When we say you shouldn't have come to capture the bee, it means you should do something different to make sure that you're not capturing the bee. What it means is don't have in mind to capture bees, meaning when you put that net on, make sure to leave an opening that the bees can get out, so that it wouldn't be tzeda. Because if tzeda happened by mistake, even though you didn't want it to occur, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that would still be awesome. Rabbi Ashi goes back to the Brisa. So we were saying that bechama means yimoisach chama, and the kshama means yimoisach kshama. And because of that, we had a problem with where is there honey available in the winter. Rabbi Ashi said, you made a mistake, you never learned the Brisa properly. Mika tani b'yimoisach chama b'yimoisach kshama. It doesn't say that we're discussing both the winter and the summer. It means bechama, if it's a sunny day, you want to cover it over to protect it from the sun. And if it's a rainy day, you want to cover it over to protect it. Katani, that's what it says. But what season of the year are we talking about? We're talking about a season where it's possible to have both a sunny day and a rainy day. Which seasons have both those types of days? B'yam Nisan in the spring, we have April showers, bring May flowers, but we also have a lot of sun. And B'yam Tishrei in the fall, Dika Chama, Dika Geshanim. So in those two seasons of the year, it's possible on the same day or even on consecutive days to have one day be sunny and one day to be rainy. And that's what we're talking about. But Avada, we're speaking about a season where there's for sure an abundance of honey and these beehives are not muksa. V'ikadvash, we have plenty of honey there. Amalu Reb Sheshes. Now we have a machloikus here between Reb Chisda and Reb Yitzchak, whether or not you're allowed to cover over an egg with a pan. According to Reb Chisda, you're allowed to. According to Reb Yitzchak, you're not allowed to. And what does the machloikus hinge on? It hinges on whether or not you're allowed to move something that's not muksa to service something that is muksa. According to Reb Yitzchak, you're not allowed to move something that's non-muksa to service something that's muksa. And that's why you're not even allowed to cover the egg with the pan. So Zok Reb Sheshes, Puku v'amaloi Reb Yitzchak, Go tell Rabbi Yitzchak, who lived in Eretz Yisrael, who was a posek in Eretz Yisrael, who came up with this chiddush in halacha, that you're not allowed to move a non-muksa item to service a muksa item. That kvartir gemor Rav Huna l'shmachach b'Bavel. Rav Huna already paskined like your halacha in Bavel, related to a completely different issue, but it's based on the same halachic premise, that you're not allowed to move something that's non-muksa if it's servicing something that is muksa. Dam Rav Huna, oishin mechitza l'meis b'shvil chai. You're allowed to make a shade type of canopy for a mace if you're doing it to service a live person. And the Gemara is going to elaborate shortly. But you're not allowed to build a canopy to service a mace. Now, that's exactly what our halacha is. You're not allowed to move around. Of course, we're talking about when you're building this canopy in a way where it's completely mutter and Shabbos. But you are moving around a non-muksa item, whatever you're going to use for the canopy, like a mat, and you're moving it for the purpose of servicing a mace, which is a muksa item. That's not allowed. Therefore, Rav Huna said you're only allowed to make this canopy if it's going to service live people, and if the mess benefits from it, that's fine. But you're not allowed to lechatchila go and move around non-muksa items to service a mace, which is muksa. And now the Gemara gets into the exact case. Mahi. What if you have a mess that's in the sun and it's deteriorating? So you need to protect it from the sun's heat. So you're not allowed to just build a canopy over it. So how do you do it? You do it b'harama. You have two men, live men come, and they'll sit beside the mace. Now they're sitting there on the floor beside the mace, and they're sitting on the burning floor, baking in the sun. It's getting hot down there. So what do? The first person can bring a bed and sit on it. Now they're not sitting directly on the floor. Now they've relieved the problem with the heat from the bottom. But they're still sitting in the blazing sun. So then they can go and mavin machzelos. They can bring a mat. So I'm visualizing. You have one guy sitting on the bed on one side of the mace. You have another guy sitting on the bed on the other side of the mace. And then they take a mat and they spread it from one side to the next, and they hold it up. So both humans are now sitting in the shade, and they're comfortable. Now the mess is in between them, but that's not why they technically moved everything. They did it to relieve themselves from the heat. Now after they have this set up, then now this guy could stand his bed up and just leave the mat instead of holding the mat in his hand. Once he stands up the bed, he can just drop the mat on the bed. So now one side of the mat is supported by the bed. And he can leave. So now it comes out that they built a canopy over the mace, but it wasn't built for the purpose of the mace. It was built officially to make the people, the humans, the live people.
But Yosy, they're there in the first place because of the mace. They're not there. So I mean, they can.
No, they can even come special to do this.
Okay, so why don't they just do it and leave? What do I mean? They have to sit down and they have to do this and that. I mean,
very. I
mean, they're there. They're not coming there because they want to be there. They're coming there for that purpose in the first place.
Oh, so Tosha speaks out. Why do they have to go through this? Why don't they sit down first? Let them just come with beds to begin with. Why don't they sit down?
Isn't it a problem with oil? Isn't it a problem with oil?
There's a problem with oil that I'm going to get to. I'm going to get to why it's not a problem with oil. Of course, they can't be building an oil because that's also on Shabbos as well. So Rashi explains why it's not that problem. But I want to first address Dovi Shaila. Dovi said very good. Dovi's saying that why can't you just build it? Why do you have to come and sit on the floor? So Tosha speaks out that they have to try as much as possible to make it look for people seeing that all this is being done to service themselves. So if they sit down on the floor first and they get hot and uncomfortable, and then they bring a bed, so to someone watching, it won't seem like they're doing this for the mace, even though that's their intention. It looks more like they're doing it for themselves.
And what if the people come afterwards and they just see the structure there? They can assume that it was done before Shabbos?
That's a good question. After we're all gone, what would people think? That's a very good question. I'm not sure. I guess you're not worried. Oh, 1 second. Tosha asked your kash as well. If we look at the Tosha, the second last Tosha from the bottom, Tosha speaks out. They don't have to wait there. Which is exactly Dubi's kasha. Why? Because Kivin b'shas hasiyah hayinira she'oiseh b'shulchai. Since at the time of the construction, it looked like they were making it on behalf of an alive person, we're not worried about after they leave. So I'm not sure why, but that's what.
Yosy Zalman, what was wrong with Duvi's teretz?
What was his teretz?
I don't have it there.
His teretz. He said that you have to that the people would assume that that it was done before Shabbos.
Once they see it all done.
Yeah, that's what Duvi said.
Okay, and what if it's a person who happened to have passed by earlier and saw that it wasn't there?
Or if the guy died on Shabbos.
So I don't know.
I found it interesting. I found it interesting, Zaman, because I didn't quite understand why the mattresses were needed. Because the mace at the end did not need the mattresses, right? The mace
at the end, the two mattresses were going to hold up the canopy.
Yeah, but the canopy could be held up without mattresses.
What else?
However, the mattresses are necessary with Tosfos's understanding, so that people should see that all this was done only for the people, because the mace Taka did not need the mattresses. I don't see why.
But at the end of the day, when the people come later, the mattresses aren't on the floor that look like someone was sitting on them. The mattresses are stood up, so it looked like someone just used them as a makeshift support for the roof. So I don't think it looks like someone was sitting there. So now we have to deal with Mechi's Bamba Kasha. Forget the problem of Muksa that I'm moving a dover a mutter, l'tzorech a dover a Muksa, and you're not allowed to build an oil on Shabbos. So Rashi asked that Kasha, and Tosfos quotes Rashi as well. It's a Bamba Kasha indeed. So let's see what Rashi says. Rashi says, V'davka nokat cham lahemi lamata b'reisha. We had to first say that they're hot underneath them first. She'yavoyu amitus liyeshiva b'reisha. So that first they should have those beds there. V'hadur machzelas, and only then do they bring the mats lifreis aleim l'tzel to spread over them on the top to shade them. They're holding on to those mats with their hands, like we do by Kol Norim, when we hold up the talis. Ad l'achar shah, until they're holding on to it with their hands. So the initial raising of this oil was done by someone holding it up, and only later on, sheyizkafum b'shamtum. Only later on are they going to stand up their beds to support the canopy and then leave. The Havalek Ahudam Rinon, Hai Medurta, Milamaila Lamata Shori. If you want to build a canopy and there's a problem of oil, if you set up the canopy first and then put into supports, that will be mutter, because that's not the normal way to build a canopy. If they would put the beds there first and then spread the canopy on top of it, the loy, that would not be allowed. The Havalek Milamata Lamaila. That's building from the bottom up, Kederech Binyan, which is the normal way to do things. You're not allowed to build an oil arai if you're doing it the normal way. But if you're building it backwards, meaning first you're putting the canopy up and then you're bringing the supports, that would be allowed. So that's
what's wrong with it?
I'm sorry, Mechi, what did you say?
Is that halacha l'maisa if you're allowed to do it that way?
It seems so. I mean, I have to look it up. I believe that the Shulchan Aruch quotes. I think I did look it up. Is it in Shin Yudov? Yeah, I looked it up. The Shulchan Aruch quotes this, so I believe that's halacha l'maisa.
Yeah, sure.
We should never have to come on to it.
When they're sitting in Chamla Mata, why don't they bring a chair?
It could be a chair. It could be anything that they could eventually use.
Because then they wouldn't have a post for the canopy.
Well, they have. Yeah, you could put across the chair.
No, don't forget. It's 1 second. Why are you bringing the canopy to protect them from the sun?
Yeah.
Yes, but it's not for the mace.
Yeah,
it's not for the mace.
They have to create a facade that they're doing it for themselves. But this whole thing was just a spiel to get a cover for the mace.
But it says Cham Lahem Milamata.
Right,
it's not about the mace.
They have to go sit there and create a pretext that it's Cham Lahem Milamata.
You mean really?
You look at Tosfos. Tosfos says, Tema v'loy shum cham my iser ika she'yavoy kolechad mata mita leishavala. Why do you need heat there? Right, that's your kasha, I believe. You ask him Tosfos kasha.
Right.
V'sula my separation mita the hadar machzelas Why don't they say Yamtinu Achirechem Lehem Gam L'mayla? Wait till they're hot on the top and on the bottom, and bring everything together. V'yaviu mitos u'machtalos yachad, which technically would work as well. V'nir the achmor abon l'mi'eved hekero shul'tzor chai kol kama de'efshir l'mevet. They have to try to create a narrative as best as possible that they're doing this not to service a mace, but to service a live person. So they have to go through the whole spiel. Okay, let's see what the Gemara says weiter. So now we're talking about servicing a mace. Zog the Gemara weiter. Thank you. Let's see where we're at. Okay.
You have a few minutes left, Yosy. I don't know to what time you want to go.
We'll be able to finish in just a few minutes. I forgot where we're up to. Oh, we're up to here? Okay, here we are. Okay, here we are. Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel, Itmar, Meis Tamutul B'chama. You have a mace flying in the sun, getting spoiled. Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel is Haifchem Mimita Lamita. Let's say it's on a mattress. So you bring another mattress, put it right beside it, lift up this mattress, the mace will roll over onto the next mattress. Then take that mattress, put it again on the other side, and keep on moving him little by little till he's out of the sun and he's in shade. No, you do what they did by David Melech. You put a kikar in a tinnik or a tinnik on the mace, and you can move the mace agav the tinnik. If the mess is on the bed's not muksa. So why can't you carry the mess agav the bed? And Kiveger bleibt schwer with a tzarech in God. Anyway, so Dr. Gemara.
Doesn't the bed come on buses to the
mace?
This bus is the double
I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question.
Oh no, but it's not been in shmoshes. Not been in shmoshes. Maybe it wasn't been in shmoshes. So maybe that's.
Yeah, that's right. Could be if this happened on Shabbos. Good point. So Dr. Gemara. If you have a way to do it with a kikar or tinnik, that's the best way to do it. It's allowed. Keep ligi, the machlokes as to whether or not you could roll the mace from bed to bed is the less late. You don't have the H of the kikar or tinnik. One man holds that even moving a mace klach yad, which is this way, where you're lifting the match up, rolling them over, that's also the isser muktzah, even if you're moving it klach yad. And the other man holds that moving a mace klach yad is not considered muktzah. This shaila of whether or not moving a mace klach yad, moving muktzah klach yad is an isser, is a machlokes tonight, because it says ein mitzilnas as a mess lefnei adleifa. If there's a mess there and there's a fire in the room and it's going to catch on, and you want to move the mess away, you're not allowed to move them away. You are allowed to. So what are they arguing about? What is the case? My time of the Tanakama. If you have a kikar and a tinnik to put on the mess, for sure you're allowed to move it. So why would the Tanakama say you're not allowed to? And if you don't have a kikar to put on the mess, my time of the Yehuda ben Lakish, why would he be out there? And alive it must be because he holds tiltul munatat ligi. The Ma'ashav tiltul munatat shmei tiltul. The Tanakama holds it's also to move a mace is because you're not even allowed to move muksa klachiyad. Ma'ashav lo shmei tiltul. And Yehuda ben Lakish held that moving muksa klachiyad is allowed. Dr. Malloy, maybe not. The chulam tiltul munatat shmei tiltul. Let's say everybody holds this is muksa, but this is an extenuating circumstance. You have a mess that's about to burn up. By the time of the Yehuda ben Lakish, the reason why he's mekel is because mitosh adam bol al mesoy. Since a person is panicking, his loved one is now going to be burnt up in a fire, and he didn't want cremation, he wanted burial, so he's going to panic. And if you don't allow him to violate an issue of muksa, this person, the loved one, might actually put the fire out and be over the raisa. So the Rabbanan waived the muksa prohibition in this case. But not that klach yad wouldn't be muksa. Klach yad is also usher, but in this extenuating circumstance, the Rabbanan waived the issue muksa. Remember, we do in Chilo or Basi or Berechadam, halacha karbidim and lachish for mace, that you're allowed to move a mace klach yad. You're allowed to move a mace klach yad. Oh, I'm sorry, even not klach yad. If there's a danger of a fire, you're allowed to move the mace away, because otherwise we're afraid you're going to violate the isur kibui. If oil drips into a container on Shabbos, you're not allowed to use that oil on Shabbos. Tan Rabbanon, moiser Hashem shebener b'shebekaira, osir is osir. Reb Shimon matir. So that is supports our Mishnah.
Yes, I mean, and not that this is the same. I mean, it's the mace, I guess, just died and there's not a smell, but you're allowed to take out a garbage if it's smelling, right, and disturbing you. So if it's the mace is traumatizing you, is there no reason you can't use that as an excuse, or Better yet, are we not traumatizing the cotton as an?
Well, the heter of Geref Sharei
Yeah,
is if you have something smelly in your house,
right.
you're allowed to take it out.
So I'm not saying it's the same because the mace just died, so maybe the smell's not there yet. But
We're talking about a mace that's outside in the sun. So there would be no problem. There'd be no
this
problem.
isn't inside the house?
No, Reb
No.
Chanina. Reb
Oh, you're talking about
Chanina.
the last case with the fire.
The
unit.
last
Yeah,
case.
yeah.
So you want to know why isn't there a heter to move the mace for what reason?
I don't know. It's traumatizing you. It's whatever. I don't know.
Because there's a dead body there?
Yeah. I mean, it's disturbing your Shabbos.
I don't know. It seems like the Gemara only allowed it because there was a fire. And it seems like people were traumatized by Mason in those days. I don't know why.
I had this, my shver passed away on Shabbos, and I was in Baltimore, and we went to Rabbi Hauer. I'm not sure why we had to take him off the bed and put him on a floor, but that's what we did. We put a piece of bread on him, and then we moved him onto the floor. But the reality is, why couldn't you leave him in the mattress? I don't know if it's because
The
of
reason why I put it on the
mess.
floor is because it's colder. And you put a mess on the floor so it should be as cold as possible.
That was so you can't really put an ice around it, right?
I think
You're
another
talking
reason
about
is
2 day
also
yontif.
I think another reason also is that in case the mace was high skill at some point, to put him on the floor.
To be it's
Yeah,
ad
it
for
sounds
the
nice.
kippur.
No, I remember when my father died, they did that, and I think Rav Felder was there. I'm pretty sure he told me that's one of them. That's one of the stories of why they put the mace on the floor.
So leaving him
On the floor on a stone
so it means
floor.
regardless of fire. That's the point. Regardless of fire, we want to move him off the bed.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, Yosy. So it's not only about the fire. It's in general to move him off.
But I guess if there's a fire, even if you don't have a kicker or tinnik, you're allowed to move him l'chatchila.
Yeah.
If
No,
the fire,
100%.
when we're in a panicky situation and we're afraid you'll be over the raisa, we waive the ilchos muksa. But if it's not a panic, like Duvi's asking, what if some of I'm traumatized by the mess being there. We're not worried about that. We're only worried if it might. We're not worried about your trauma. We're worried that because of your trauma, you're going to do a malacha deraisa and you're going to put out a flame. That's why we're waiving the isur muksa. We're not waiving it because you're traumatized. If you're traumatized, we tell you to deal with it. But if it's going to come to an isur deraisa, then we take action. Akiva, so by your father-in-law, when did they make levai on the second day of Yom Tov?
No, it was on Shabbos. It was Shabbos Yud Aleph. Yeah, Yud Aleph Iyar, and he passed away on Shabbos, and then Levi was Sunday.
So it was the third day of a 3-day Yom Tov.
No. It was Yud Aleph Iyar. It was Iyar. I just remember earlier from I think it was by you remember he passed away in Shavuos. No, wasn't it Erev Shavuos by the Achmas Sefer Torah?
Mr. Reichman?
Mr. Reichman.
It was on the first day Shavuos.
So it was, I think that was a 3-day Yom Tov too, because I remember walking with my father, Mr. Schoenberger, and he wanted to say Tehillim, but he didn't carry in the Erev, so they gave me his glasses to carry, so he could say.
But they did the Levi on the second day Yom Tov. They did.
Oh, so I didn't remember. So so he went on the first day. That's what I remember. They went on the first day. I stayed outside, but I had to carry his glasses for him. That's what I remember. Because I think it was on Shabbat.
That's called Ayidei Tiddik.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So I think it was could have been a Shabbos Sunday. I don't remember. I think it was a Shabbos at one point. Anyway, okay, you're giving shir at 9 o'clock.
I think so. I didn't connect with what time it is. I think it's around 9. When is Rabbi Reese saying shir?